Hey everyone, welcome back to YAML series. So in this video, we are going to learn all the advanced stuff in YAML. So in our previous video, we dived deeper into YAML core concept and built knowledge on creating list and symbol dictionaries. Now we will go a step further and understand how the nesting works in YAML, which actually help to create more complex structures. So this is going to be an interesting one. So let's break down this concept with some examples here and explore its use cases. Well, we will start with the symbol use case for documenting information about a person. So let's see how to do that. So we'll have the root key as a person and it contains the mapping with three key value pairs. One is name, then age, then the profile. And these are nested within the person key, and YAML used the indentation to denote the hierarchy. In these examples, as you can see, we have used two spaces for the indentation. So let's expand this YAML structures to include another dictionary. So we'll call it as programming to provide additional details about John's programming skills. So we'll add a nested key called programming within the person mapping. In that we'll have a subkey called proficiency and experience. And these keys are nested within the programming key. So this expanded structures allow us more comprehensive representations, and in YAML this is known as map inside a map, where the outer map represents a person and the inner map represents the specific skill. Now let's execute this YAML data using Python as demonstrated in our previous video. Before that, let's rename the file name to advanced_concept and give it a try. So if you look at this output, there are a few important things. Let's keep the YAML and Python results side by side, and the structures begin with curly braces denoting a dictionary or a mapping, with a root key as a person containing all the four key value pairs. The fourth key called skills is a sub-dictionary where the additional details about the programming and which is the nested dictionaries. So now consider a scenario where John possesses an additional skills beyond programming. Suppose he is good in public speaking. Under the skills key, we can append his extra skills, labeling them as public speaking. And the proficiency level and the experience details can incorporate with appropriate indentations. So this looks very interesting. Now let's go ahead and run this code and see how the Python output look like. So as you can see, we have an additional skills added for the John under the skills key, and those are having the same indentation level as programming. In this way, we can develop and represent more complex data structures using YAML. And I hope this makes sense. And if you have any questions, feel free to add in the comment section. So the nesting can be accomplished using either with a dictionary or a list items. For an instance, we'll introduce an additional key named language and include the list of programming language that John is familiar with, such as Python, JavaScript, and Java. And this is purely for a demonstration purpose, and this is called as a list inside a map or maps of list. To enhance the clarity, we have commented out the other mapping to provide a clear view of the results. So when we pass this YAML file in Python, we can see a new key called languages added under the programming. So now we have three keys inside the programming key at the same indentation level, and the item inside the languages start and end with a square bracket with all the item details inside we have mentioned in the YAML data. So this is how you can create a list inside a map with YAML. And always remember to have indentation when you are dealing with the levels, and we can have a single or double space as long as we maintain the same spacing throughout the documentation. And please press the like button if you like my explanation. Well, the nesting is also possible using the sequence, where we can have one or more sequence or a map within another sequence. Let's see some use case where we'll try to create a firewall rules using the list of list items. So we'll have the firewall as the first item in the list. Underneath we'll have the IP address, and we'll have another nested list called rules, where we'll define all the rule statements like allow HTTP, allow SNMP, etc. So let's pass this YAML data. There's a typo in the first line where we have the hyphen in the end of the first line. Let's remove it and rerun our code. So if you see the results, we have two lists here. In the first list contain the firewall and the IP address, and we have one more square bracket getting started that contain the rule statements. This may not be a common use case in the real world, but I just want to share it for the context. Now let's explore one of the most important and frequently encountered YAML use case, that is list of maps. Again, this pattern is commonly observed in various YAML representation like Docker combos or Kubernetes configurations. For example, let's write a custom configuration for a network device where we'll feed the YAML input data to configure the NTP and SNMP services. So we'll start with the configuring the NTP service as a list item with a hyphen in the beginning. Then what I'm doing is defining the name, then enabled as a key, which is a Boolean value, and the server details. And all these mappings are intended from the first list item with 2 spaces. Now the server is another nested key for the list of item with 2 NTP server. And these listed items are started with hyphen, as you can see here. Similarly, we can configure the SNMP server with all the required parameters and indentations. Now, if you look at specifically here we are using traps as a key, and inside that we have one more key called host using hyphen. So this is more of a list items. And let's see how the output look like when we run this YAML from the Python. So if you look at the results here, the structure start with a list with a square bracket at the beginning and the end, because we have a hyphen at the beginning of the YAML file. Next, we have the keys like configure the NTP service and configure the SNMP servers as a main key for the bunch of nested dictionaries and list items. And if you specifically look at the last components where we have the key as a trap and the value has started with hyphen with a mapping. So YAML is very flexible to represent the data, whatever format we want, as long as we remember the rules. So now you learn how to build a nested sequence and the mappings in the YAML with its practical usage. So essentially YAML is nothing more than a collection of key value pairs with a proper indentations. And once we understand that fact, we are good to go with to write any complex YAML files. I hope the use case shown in this video and the explanation makes sense. In the next video, we'll dive into more practical and real-world examples, solidifying the knowledge gained from the last 2 videos. With that, I'll wrap up this video and see you on the next one.